All right, team, welcome back to the channel, man. I'm stoked to see this. We're going to jump straight into some actual board questions that my peers asked to the left and to my right at the table to all the board attendees. These were both asked to specialists and to sergeants who are trying to get promoted. So let's get this thing to it. By the way, man, that's what this channel is all about. It's all about professional development, answering some questions, putting some stuff into your kit bag and some military news along the way. So hopefully we can continue to master our craft. If that's what you're into, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date on some future content. So I wrote down, here it is, right? Probably not the, so what, I have chicken scratch writing. Hopefully I can read it myself. But I wrote down 2, 4, 6, 8, and we're going to go through at least 4 of these, and then we'll see how we're looking at for time. So I'm going to answer you the question, and I'm going to tell you what some of the responses, how they were answered, and then we can go over some different thoughts on how you could put together your answers. And by the way, man, all of our promotion boards are situational questions, every single one. So like this very first question is about defense. And the question was asked, how will you set up defense for your area of operations? Pretty good question, right? It's very open-ended. And it's not a lot to nugget on. So what I think the other board member was looking for was just some kind of a depth of clarity from the soldier or the NCO, that you kind of got your medal, right? You kind of understood what your job and what your role is. So people stumbled on this one, right? They stumbled really hard. They weren't quite expecting this type of question. Certainly not for this subject area. And I think the ones who did the best talked about, how are you going to prepare? So I think the ones who did best worked through some troop leading procedure styled themes in their answer and talked about conducting PCCs and PCIs on the front end. Talking about checking load plans, making sure that we actually had everything that we needed to roll out. That they've conducted a reconnaissance and that they understand MET-TC, right? Being able to throw some of that in there. And I think once you do that, like even if you start thumbing around, like you're going to get nudged. And he did, right? I'm sitting here thinking like, dude, that's a good question. And he started nudging people to the left or to the right to see if they had studied a little bit about protection. But I think if you throw anything like MET-TC out there in a question that's similar to this, it's going to help demonstrate your understanding of what your role is, right? It's not your job to come up with a huge defensive operation plan, but how do you fit in? How do you fit a 360 coverage? How do you fit in a work-rest cycle at your echelon? How do you set in individual fighting positions, right? Think about things from your perspective, not just the big picture. Because I don't need you to think about a lot of those things. So next question was, you're counseling a soldier who was a great one, but showed up late for work. What are your actions? So here's the scenario. Here's your go-to soldier, right? Always does is keep grinding and always does a good job. Always has a great attitude. And all of a sudden, 0630 PT formation, they show up late. They're FTR, man. What do you do? Now, I don't think that the board member was trying to get into the rabbit hole of a missing service member. The question stems in and is guided in, you have a stellar performer who shows up late. How do you handle this situation? So as people were answering this one, they didn't stumble around too much on it, but you just got to remember, you have to be consistent, man. So if somebody does something that you need to take a little bit from them, then you take a little bit from them. If they do something that does good and puts favor into them, then put the favor on them. So if a soldier shows up late, man, you're going to counsel them. You can provide them some corrective training. And then you're going to close out that counseling. Another board member asked, a soldier fails height and weight. What happens next? So let's walk the dog on this process a little bit, because I think that there's some misconceptions, because unless you've been through the process of being taped and needing to be taped, and unless you've been through the process of what happens next, I think that there's a lot of, I don't know, because I've never experienced it. So step number one is to get your height and weight, right? And of course, have your regulation open. And you should throw in, like, in these questions, man, do yourself a favor. Here's 2 pro tips. Pro tip number 1, make sure that you use the name of the regulation in your answer, right? Make sure that you use the question that you're being asked in your answer. Don't just answer the question. So in this scenario, again, a soldier fails height and weight. What happens next? First sergeant, when a soldier fails height and weight, the following actions are, and then you can go into it, right? It helps slow some things down, helps you control the board a little bit more. But to rewind the clock a little bit, right? So a soldier receives their height and weight, and if they're a no-go at that station, then you become, or then you need to have your 5500 or 5501, and like use forms in your answer, right? Now, you can't just do one 5500 or one 5501. You have to have 2 done by 2 completely different tape teams. All of these teams should be certified by the company. And so once you're a no-go at both 5500s or both 5501s, the very next immediate action is that the soldier is counseled and flagged and then enrolled into the commander's Army Body Composition Program. A lot of people started talking about nutrition counseling and stuff like this, and the dude down the row from me had to reel him back in. Like, you're getting too far. I mean, what's the immediate action? Right? The immediate action is you have to be counseled and flagged and then enrolled in the Army Body Composition Program. All 3 of those things happen like the exact same day. And then that 268, which is that flag action, goes to S1 so that it can be inputted on the service member's SRB. Hope that makes sense. After that, now you start getting into your monthly weigh-ins where a service member has to have satisfactory performance. So you have a soldier is wounded. You're in an operational or combat environment. It took some shrapnel to the leg. It's not arterial. What are your actions? So what was interesting about this one is that people like automatically, that one, they weren't thinking, I need to let the service member apply some self-aid first. They weren't thinking that I need to, I'm under fire, right? So first thing under fire is to return fire and gain fire superiority. So they kind of missed out on that. And then they went straight to the tourniquet. Like the question, and this is like pro tip number 3 when it comes to situational questions. Listen to the question. What is actually being asked? In this case, the question is, the dude has an injury, but it's non-arterial. It's just venous. He's just bleeding a little bit. So if your go-to for that is to apply a tourniquet, you're probably going to get gnawed on a little bit by a first sergeant, which is exactly what happened. I was laughing. Like, what do you mean you're going to apply a tourniquet? So, apply a daggum pressure dressing, right? Clean the wound. Do some basic stuff. Let's see. I have no idea how we're doing on time. Whatever. Let's keep going. Hey, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna put these next four into a video next week. Let's do that. I do hope that you enjoyed the content of this conversation and the video. I mean, these are actual board questions that I'm sitting here hand driving out, along with a couple tips for you that you can put in your kit bag. If you did enjoy it, make sure you smash the like button. Consider sharing this video if you think somebody else out there, maybe it's a team member, maybe it's a battle buddy, maybe it's a soldier who's in your charge, might gain some value from it as well. And that way we can continue to grow the community, grow the conversation so that we can continue to master our craft. And until then, man, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.